Sometimes we'll have the guy just collapse into the pillows, or some tears will start to come, or something will happen that moves beyond the anger. Okay, so social psychology says anger begets anger. You know, if you read all the textbooks on social psych, and that's a different context. You know, in social psychology, what they're doing is they're getting somebody pissed off, and then they're giving them a buzzer to shock somebody. You know, it's like, that's not what we're doing. We have a context for this. There's a reason. Someone's coming in with frustration, and we're allowing that to be expressed, and then we work on the feelings. Usually there's pain, hurt, shame underneath all that anger, and that's what we're trying to get at. Again, if you're doing domestic violence or you're doing some other group that has to do with violence, then you need to monitor that. That may not be the best approach. Okay, this group tends not to do this. So I was just going to throw a few. These are not the real names of people, but I just wanted to give you a sense of who's in our group. This was just from one of the years, so you can just kind of get a feel for this. And you can see it's a wide range of guys coming for different reasons, several of them having relationship issues. One of the things that I have noticed is that there is a conflict that occurs sometimes between partners. So if one of them the guy comes to the group, and either has a gay partner or a heterosexual partner, they're all for the person getting grouped, but as soon as the guy starts becoming a little more assertive, expressing himself more, not playing the part he was playing in the relationship, there's a conflict. And we had one guy recently came to the group. His wife told him he had no empathy and he had an anger issue. Okay, and so he's like, okay, I'm here because of that. We're like, fine. Meanwhile, he comes to the group for 2 months. He's very empathic with other people, and he talked about his anger issue, and it was like minimal compared to all the other guys in the group, and he seemed to be really expressive. And so he got all this support, and he came to us 3 months in and just said, look, I'm going to leave the group. And we're like, whoa, you seem like you're doing pretty well. He goes, yeah, that's the problem. I'm doing really well, and I'm not comfortable anymore in my marriage. I am not comfortable anymore playing the role I am. I need to go do couples therapy. I'm going with my wife to kind of deal with this. And so, we said, you could stay here too, but, sometimes it's a cost issue. He knows the door's open. We've had guys come back. We've had guys working on issues for many years. They drop out for a while, they come back. This guy, I'm guessing, will come back. But you can see, just taking a brief look at the variety. Oftentimes there's a trauma. You can see that this guy, Stan, was a big shot. His daughter had been killed. That opened it up for him. He can't sleep. He needed a place where he could talk about that. We have this guy, this really interesting guy, this guy Richie, used to go see prostitutes all the time, married a woman who is a sexual abuse survivor, and she was not up for his sexual addiction. And so she initially said, you need to go do something or I'm out of here. So he came to the group, went to SA, Sexaholics Anonymous, and really was a long-term member of our group and worked on his issues, a lot of it stemming from his childhood, some abuse from his sister, mother being really domineering, father not in the picture, and he became this computer programmer, detached. Now he's a sculptor. He's like success story. He's like famous sculptor now. And that's what he does. He went from this really tight guy, doesn't have the sexual issues at the same level at all, and does this wonderful art that is kind of angry art, but it's like his outlet. And he got a lot of support in group for doing that. This is what I want to say. Roger came to the group, had recently come out of the closet, comes to this men's group expecting everybody to hate him, expecting prejudice, expecting that somehow he was going to be rejected, but he knew he had some issues and he wanted to work on them. The guys in the group were far from that projection. In fact, They were really curious and very interested in him. And we even did an exercise one night that was really interesting about attraction. And guys being attracted, you know, like not necessarily, it wasn't about like, hey, I'm sexually attracted. It was more about what I showed earlier about the passion, about who's attractive in the group. And the guys were able to do that, and I think just even that exercise showed him that he didn't need to be afraid of heterosexual guys. The guys did not go after him. He did some work on that. We did some psychodrama. We had guys play parts in the group who he projected onto would be rejecting of him, and he played out his fears, he played out his issues, and the guys, you know, did their part. But afterwards, there was a really supportive environment. He had a really good experience in the group. Each guy, you know, I could go, we have 200 of these guys. So I'm just like, each of these guys is pretty interesting. This guy, Carlos, he looked like a biker, you know, and he was in a marriage, and he was having a hard time sort of maintaining. And he had been beat up as a kid and tough guy. And the group, he became the emotional leader of the group. It was like he was the guy who would say, excuse my language here, I know I'm on tape, but I'm gonna say, he would be the one to say, would you cut that intellectual bullshit? He was that guy. And he would scare one of the other guys going, okay, I'm sorry, yeah, you know, I'm scared, I'm fearful. And so he enforced the emotional level. And when he first came in, he was far from that. And so that's what can happen in the group process, is that the guys become facilitators. They become emotional leaders within that group, and then it expands out into their lives. Like I said, it doesn't always work when they expand it out into their lives because they're not playing the same part anymore. I like this slide. Just reminder, guys can look intimidating. They're not, that's usually protection. It's almost always protection. In poker, I always go, the guys who are wearing the sunglasses and the hat and looking kind of intimidating, they're scared. You know, it's scary, and I think it's really hard because our own personal sense of safety tells us, whoa, that person looks kind of hard and mean, but they're underneath that, all they are really trying to do is kind of hold it together. And I think if you keep that awareness with you, you can handle tough guys, because the toughness is a defense. And you don't want to take it away from them, but you don't want to be intimidated by it either. Okay, this is, I think, important stuff right here. These are what I call the inflection points of the group process. And so depending on how long your group runs, I think that these will actually be important pieces. And again, my thing is about deepening psychotherapy, you know, so I want groups to have some depth. I want some emotion. I want to see guys really working on themselves, not just superficially saying, yes, I'm doing that. And so the first phase of the group is usually that trust phase, and that means you need to do some exercises that encourage self-disclosure, but not at the rate that would be scary, but that everybody's disclosing something. You know, and at the beginning of a group, it might be talk about why you're here, it might even move into the present, talk about what you're feeling tonight, talk about something about maybe your relationship with your father, something that allows the other guys to hear what's being spoken and that they could identify with. Because usually there's another person in the group who feels something similar. We build a supportive community. Guys are really good about creating, it's almost like we're creating a team. Sometimes I feel like we're on a boat. You know, like we're in the room and I feel like, God, we're on a boat. Because they're all, you know, we all have kind of roles and we get in there and everybody talks really openly. And so the support is, in terms of facilitation, is for you to actually be very reinforcing to self-disclosure, regardless of the level, you know. And even a guy who's saying, you know, I'm feeling, I don't know how I feel, but I'm glad to be here. You go, that's good. I'm glad you feel good about being here. We don't push them to say, what's that emotion? You know, that'll come.